On behalf of the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at the Johns Hopkins University, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Fall 2021 preview. I'm Susan Howard, the program director. It's hard to believe that our program transitioned so fully to virtual learning at the beginning of last year. Our success in a year of uncertainty is thanks to your participation and support, and to the dedication of our wonderful faculty and staff. Our accomplishments gave me great confidence as we embrace changes again this year in locating new campus spaces. In September, we will continue to offer virtual classes for a variety of interests. Class topics include history, film, music, literature, health, and criminal law. In late fall, we may even be able to offer an in-person, socially distanced event or a few short courses on the ground. Like many of you, we look forward to returning to in-person classes with optimism that the university will be back to normal operations in the spring of 2022. The main event today would not be possible without Osher at JHU faculty member Stan Levin. We are very grateful to Stan for sharing his many talents with us in creating this documentary of our classes each year. Please enjoy the preview.
Hi, my name is Ann Wiker. I'm the administrative supervisor for the Osher Institute at Johns Hopkins. I've been in this role for over 3 years now, and I work with all 3 campuses and both memberships, the Montgomery County membership, as well as the Baltimore Columbia membership. I'm looking forward to seeing you this fall and hopefully to meeting some new members.
I'm Kathy Cooke, the program coordinator in Baltimore and Columbia. My role includes customer service, working on Osher's online registration site, as well as the Osher at JHU course catalogs and journal.
Hello, my name is Andrew Ward, and I am the program assistant for the Baltimore Columbia campus. I provide technical assistance and information for Osher members, while also working with instructors to ensure successful courses and events. I look forward to continuing my role in the Osher at JHU community.
Good morning, folks. We are going to study the book of Judges, which is the seventh book in the Hebrew Bible, which describes the transition from the Israelites from being a bunch of slaves and conquering the land of Canaan under the book of Joshua, and the move into monarchy, which will happen with the first king of the Israelites, King Saul, in the book of Samuel. In between, the Israelites resorted back to the tribal system without having any kind of centralized leadership. And the book of Judges will describe us whether this was successful or not successful. The other thing that we'll see in the book of Judges is the first effort by what we call the Deuteronomic historian, which means an effort to explain history through the prism of the Deuteronomic theology, which will be explained more once we start the class, and we will see how that goes. So I'm looking forward to studying the book from beginning to end next semester, and I hope that many of you will join us in studying it. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Roger Brunyett. My course, The Shakespeare Legacy, will look at the many ways in which Shakespeare has been reinterpreted and adapted over the centuries and in all imaginable media. For example, when the theatres reopened for the Restoration, they did not put Shakespeare on a pedestal, but were quite free to adapt his plays as masques or musicals to suit their own tastes. With the Romantic movement at the start of the 19th century, Shakespeare became an international phenomenon, the universal embodiment of melodrama and the incarnation of the inwardly conflicted hero, which led in turn to his plays becoming the subjects for opera, culminating in the final two masterpieces of Giuseppe Verdi, Othello and Falstaff. The 20th century brought more than I can possibly list here. Freudian interpretations, Marxist ones, and films of all kinds, from the faithful to the wildly imaginative, such as Akira Kurosawa's kabuki version of Lear. Not to forget the many plays that have been interpreted in dance, such as Romeo and Juliet, A Midsummer Night's Dream, and Here, The Winter's Tale. If you want more, go to the website brunier.com/Shakespeare. I shall be adding more detail over the summer.
Hello, I'm Rex Rayfeld, and this fall I'm going to be teaching a course on the Spanish Civil War. In April 1931, the Second Spanish Republic was proclaimed, beginning several years of unstable government and anti-clerical violence as power shifted between the right and left, until finally on July 17, 1936, a group of generals led by Francisco Franco, fed up with the instability, began a revolt to replace the republic. The Civil War that ensued is probably one of the most misunderstood wars of all times. Often characterized as a fight between democracy and fascism, Ernest Hemingway notwithstanding, there was little, if any, democracy on one side and little fascism on the other. Instead, it was a clash between autocracy and a combination of anarchy, communism, and only a small touch of republicanism the other. Nora is often considered, was it really the precursor and rehearsal for World War II? The origins of the war start in 1812 with the promulgation of Spain's first constitution, beginning to move away from an absolute monarchy. And its final chapter closes with Spain's completion of its transition to democracy in 1981. We'll begin with that first constitution and follow the events in Spain between those two milestones: a war of succession, a republic, a military regime, the Second Republic, the Civil War, Franco's dictatorship finally replaced upon his death with a constitutional monarchy. I hope you'll come join me as we discuss the events that have led to today's Spain. Thank you.
This is a description of Michael Binder's class. This is rocket science. We've all heard the expression, well, it ain't rocket science. What is it like being a rocket scientist? How do rocket engines work? In this course, we will look at these incredible machines and how they take us into space. We'll look at space vehicles from the past, present, and future, and discuss how the different components, nozzle, combustion chamber, turbopumps, valves, etc., work together under the most extreme conditions. This course is not only for science and math geeks, but is designed to be accessible by anyone interested in learning more.
I'm Dr. David Hatch, and I have a course scheduled for this autumn entitled History and Myths / Myths in History. This is a little unusual for me. We are going to discuss ways of knowing. We'll look at the history of history. We'll look at the things people have generally believed or taken for granted about history and try to test out their accuracy. And we'll concentrate on sources and how to distinguish among sources as we look at events, as we look at people, as we look at claims. The class requirement will be participation. I hope that people will ask questions, will make comments, will contribute from their experience, from their own knowledge about these very interesting items. I believe the course will both be fun as we explode myths, and I believe it will also be quite profitable as we learn to understand how to evaluate what we read and hear, not only in history, but it has applications today. So I would invite your participation in class. Remember, iconoclasm is fun.
My name is Ann Wiker. I am very excited about my upcoming fall course. It will be offered on Monday afternoons from 1 to 3 o'clock. This course is focusing on the golden age of African American arts and culture, the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance was a time period in the 1920s and 30s when a lot of creatives were gathering in the Harlem neighborhood of New York City: writers, performers, dancers, singers, poets, visual artists. And this area became a mecca for a new African American identity and a pride in culture. And I'm going to look really closely at some of the inspirations and connections between the visual artists, the musicians, the stage performers, even the fashion of that time period. We'll be talking about artists like Aaron Douglas, Jacob Lawrence, Augusta Savage. We'll look at their artwork, photography, prints, painting, and we'll see what their inspirations were and how they influenced future generations. There will be no reading list, no homework assignments, just an obligation to be there and be part of the discussion and hopefully to enjoy exploring this time in art history with me. Thank you so much.
My name is Mary Detterer, and I am a professor of film studies in English. And this fall, we are going to have a deep dive into the world of David Fincher. For me, he's been somebody that's been really interesting to watch ever since his first film, which was Seven. So really looking forward to covering his filmography, which honestly isn't all that long, but I think is incredibly intense. And so we'll be looking at films like Social Network, Zodiac, which is one I think of his best films, and Fight Club. There are going to be a lot of films that you're going to be able to access online, several of which are going to be free. There is no reading list for this class. We're going to be talking about the films within the 6-week period of the class, but we're not going to be able to watch the films in class. So I'm hoping that for those of you that are interested, that you will seek out and check out his films. You'll be getting a schedule of which films we'll be covering in each class. So you can either prepare ahead of time and watch the films, or you can enjoy the lecture. And then if it's something that you think you might be interested in, you could check it out then as well. So I'm really looking forward to it this fall, really looking forward to seeing you guys, and take care and hope to see you soon.
Hi, this is Ron Edelstein. I'm going to be teaching Energy and Environment 2 this semester, and I look forward to this. We're going to go beyond a basic understanding of climate change this semester, and we're going to search for possible alternative sources of energy that can deal with this. Due to the timeliness of the subject and the urgency of the climate change issues, we're going to be looking closely at what the Biden administration has done and what they can do, and what can be done by executive action and what might take congressional approval. The year 2020 was the warmest, tied for the warmest year on record. Or will it be the coolest year for the next 50 years? So we're going to be taking a look at the impacts of climate change. We're going to look at flooding, sea level rise, desertification, that is the extension of deserts, increased rainfall in some areas. And we're going to deal with these issues and see what the tie is between those and climate change. And finally, have we reached a tipping point here that is the point of no return, where we won't be able to go back and reduce the impacts of climate change? Are we approaching the 2 degrees centigrade limit of the Paris Agreement? And can we stop or even reverse that? We will look at carbon capture. We'll look at energy storage. We'll look at electric vehicles. And so please join me for this exciting session and a very current topic. And I hope to see you there. Thank you.
My name is Mel Goodman. I've been teaching a course on international relations at Hopkins for Osher for, I don't know, forever, maybe at least 20 years. I can't think of a more important time to be dealing with international relations than the miserable time we're in right now. I'll teach the course this time with 3 goals in mind. One, looking at the wretched inheritance from Donald Trump and the misery created in terms of climate control, arms control, what he did to our alliance structure, the way he pandered to Russia President Vladimir Putin. The second goal will be to examine that inheritance in terms of what Joe Biden has done with it, because I think he's done well on one level in terms of appointing some rather solid people to replace the mediocre people that Donald Trump had in place. But finally, I will look at some of the problems that Biden has inherited that he's not handled so well. He clearly misfired on the refugee issue. I think he's not done well in terms of the crisis in the Middle East and the renewed fighting between Palestinians and Israelis. I think he's treating China in an old school way in terms of containment. So finally, what I hope to do is address all of these goals, keeping my background in mind, the fact that I had 25 years with the Central Intelligence Agency, and bring some of these intelligence issues to bear on policy to show how intelligence and policy are somewhat linked, and to provide the context that is missing from the mainstream media. So I think with that, we'll have an important semester and I hope some very good discussion. And my most recent book that came out a few months ago, you can get at Politics and Prose. It's called Containing the National Security State, which will be a major part of the semester. So I hope to see you in the fall.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. Welcome to my basement. Many of you already know me, but for those of you who don't, my name is Seth Keibel. You know that song I was just playing, you might know it, Take the A Train. Duke Ellington, as you may know, was a prolific and gifted composer, but one of the ultimate ironies of his career is that his single biggest hit, that song, he didn't write. Instead, it was written by his protege, his disciple, the great Billy Strayhorn, and Billy Strayhorn wrote it based on the directions Duke had given him on how to get to his apartment. You take the A train up to Sugar Hill in Harlem. If they had had GPS back then, there'd be no song. Anyhow, look, in my course, we're going to learn about the lives, careers, and music of 2 American jazz legends, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, both pianists, both band leaders, both esteemed members of American jazz royalty. But as we will learn, quite different individuals with quite different musical oeuvres. Anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to listen to classic recordings, see some great video clips. No advanced preparation needed. Just show up with your ears and your willingness to have fun. I hope to see you in class.
Good morning. My name is John Spears. There seemed to be a groundswell of request for something to do with science. And so I've been working on a history of science class, which I vow will be finished by the time fall rolls around. I wanted to give you a heads up on that and a little teaser. why you should take the class. And it's in the form of a visual quiz. History of Science in 6 episodes. First illustration. And the question to go along with it: when did mathematics and warfare cement their alliance? An answer to the nearest century. Question number 2. Where is the boundary between mysticism and scientific investigation? Using the letters L, H, and C, give some famous and historical names associated with the science of the Large Hadron Collider. There we go. Okay, well, this is a teaser, and I'm not going to give you the answers. I'm sorry. You'll just have to remain frustrated, unless you've aced it, in which case, I want you in the course so you can help me out with it. So, in either case, sign up, and I'll see you in the fall. Bye.
Hi, everybody. This is George Scheper, and I'm going to be looking forward to meeting everybody who might be interested in taking this class. I'm going to be teaching a course called 1900 Cradles of Modernism in Vienna, Paris, and London. I've taught this a lot, but it changes every time I do it because there's always kind of new things to explore. And what I like to do is basically have heavily illustrated talks that focus on art and architecture. I try to get into other areas as best I can, but depending on who's taking the course, if you've got some special expertise in music, for instance, I'd love to hear your comments about the music of Vienna or Paris. So basically what we do is we explore the cultural history of these places, and to cut right to the chase, we could use the expression, how did Paris become Paris? How did Vienna become Vienna? How did London become London? Meaning the places we think of when we think of them as kind of tourist destinations. People go to Paris for, pretty specific reasons, but how did Paris get that way? Creating the kinds of spaces, the kinds of places that attract us there. And so I'm going to try to do that with each of these 3 cities, because each one of them is a kind of cradle of modernism, of how our modern world really came to be, largely by what was happening in those places, in the cafes, the music halls, the art galleries of those 3 cities. In many ways, is not only about those 3 cities, but it's about us. It's about how we became the modern people we are. Be well and stay safe until then, and hope to see as many of you as possible in the fall.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Clift. I'm a longtime journalist. I write a column for the Daily Beast, which is an online news site. And I'll be teaching a course at Osher this fall, which is titled Taking Stock of Biden's America. And we will be coming up on the end of his first year in office. And so it's time to take account of whether he's been able to deliver on his campaign promises to make government work and to make it work to make lives better. Now, that sounds like an obvious thing that government should be doing, but it hasn't been doing a whole lot of that in recent years, and a lot of people in this country feel like they've been left behind. So the other part of the class will also be taking account of the Republican Party and how it is managing itself and putting itself back together, or perhaps breaking apart since President Trump left the White House. So this is a transition point, I think, in our democracy, where for the first time I am questioning the strength of our democracy and whether we can actually keep it together. But we also have a lot at stake in how our elections are conducted and whether they will be allowed to go forward with people voting fully and fairly. And we're seeing a lot of questions raised about that simple small d democratic right.
Hello, everybody. This is Nora Hamerman, and I'm offering a class on the Divine Comedy, A Journey Through Art. And this is, of course, about the greatest poem that was ever written. And it's designed for people who have never read Dante's comedy. He actually didn't call it Divine Comedy, which is intriguing in its own right. Those who have tried to read it and not totally succeeded, and those who have read it and who love it so much they'd like to go through it again. This is the Dante year. 2021 is the 700th anniversary of Dante's death in Ravenna in exile, because in honor of the anniversary, many museums, including the Vatican, the Uffizi Museum in Florence, and other places, have put out online all of the illustrations that they have in their collection of Dante. So we're going to start with illustrations to help us on our journey, the illustrations that were made in the century that Dante lived and died, and right up to the 20th and 21st century. So those artists are going to give us different views of how people saw Dante's famous imaginary journey through the afterlife. So I hope that you will enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there. If you've ever, even if you don't believe in the afterlife, I bet all of us wish that there was some other justice beyond this world where really bad people get what they deserved and really good people get rewarded. And Dante is the first person who lets us imagine that and enjoy it. I'm going to encourage people to write their own characters into it if you wish. So that's my, my class. I want to see lots and lots of people there.
Good afternoon. I'm Laura Donnelly, and this fall I'm going to be teaching the arts and crafts movement in Britain and America. This movement was an international style created to reform the decorative and fine arts after years of heavy Victorian excess. Things were craftsman made and they were just beautiful. It was applied to everything: houses and tea rooms, paintings and stained glass, furniture, wallpapers and textiles, books and gardens. It flourished chiefly in Britain and Scotland, but it crossed the pond to influence Frank Lloyd Wright's prairie style and California architects Green and Green. Even our own Sears craftsman house kits were heavily influenced by the arts and crafts beauty in its devotion to line, material, and natural beauty. In this class, we're going to study the style in all its variety, and we're going to visit the chief examples open to view, both in England, Scotland, and America. Our own local Dunbarton Oaks Gardens were designed by a practitioner of this, and they can be visited today. This is an art history class. There'll be a bibliography of at least a dozen books for those who want to delve deeper into the subject, but there's no homework for you other than listening, taking notes, and then asking questions and giving me homework assignments for what I may not have covered or other things that you think of. So I hope that you'll join me this fall. Thanks.
Some people say a man is made out of mud, a poor man's made out of muscle and blood and skin and bone, a mind that's weak and a back that's strong. You load 16 tons and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. Lord, don't you call me, 'cause I just can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Well, hello. My name is Roy Justice, and I'm a singing historian. I love music, and I love history, and I enjoy putting those two things together that kind of explain how and why we do some of the things we do today. And I'm going to explain a little bit about the class I'll be teaching in the fall. The title of the class is Hidden in Plain Sight, Powerful but Subtle Influences That Persuaded American History. Very often when we discuss things in history, we talk about specific events and large cataclysmic kind of things that influence history. but we often overlook some of the things that influence history in a more subtle way. And I look forward to seeing you all in the class in the fall. And between now and then, God bless and stay healthy. And of course, the music will be chosen according to the topics and mostly sing-along songs that you can join in with. Thanks again.
Steve Friedman's class, creators behind the musicals, their great legacy. The Gershwins, Cole Porter, Rodgers and Hart, and then Hammerstein, Frank Lesser, Kander and Ebb, and Jerry Herman, to name a few, all made the popular musical what it is today. Explore these inspired forces in the musicals they created, most of which are remembered today as hits, and even those forgotten are cult classics just the same. All of these creators left behind a legacy of great music and style. Come and explore tunesmiths and their impressive contribution to our culture and a genre of entertainment.
Hi, my name is Jen McClendon, and I'm a historian of many subjects, including cultural heritage destruction in Iraq and Syria. The course that I'll be giving this fall is a great course that surveys everything that is being destroyed and some of the things that are being rebuilt, some of the successful rebuilds and potential tourist destinations in Iraq and Syria. We're going to cover places like the damage to the Great Mosque of Damascus, which is an Umayyad era mosque, meaning that it is the dynasty right after the death of the prophet. So it's remarkable. I also go up into Afghanistan and I talk about the destruction and reconstruction of the great Buddhas of Bamiyan province. I also talk about the future of Afghanistan with regard to that particular area as a place where there could be a lot of tourism. And you wouldn't believe the remarkable photography that's available of that particular area. I also talk about the destruction in the city of Homs, Syria, the Palmyra, which has experienced considerable reconstruction. So we'll both discuss the destruction and the reconstruction of Palmyra. We'll talk about the destruction and the reconstruction of the Temple of Baal and how Palmyra is literally one of the oldest cities. I hope to see you in the fall. I will also take requests if somebody would like to learn more about any particular artifact that's either been destroyed, looted, or returned, or just what's going on broadly. I'll take requests. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rich Barrett. I'm a scientist and a trainer. This coming fall, I'm offering a course on globalization. Now, globalization is what happens when national leaders take the trouble to look beyond their borders, to find ways to communicate and cooperate, to produce results that are in the interest of their own population and in the interest of people worldwide. There are admittedly some powerful forces that are opposing globalization. Some of them have to do with human nature itself, the fact that we tend to focus on our families and our own little village. And there are also some downsides of globalization, and we'll discuss the downsides of globalization in this class. But I hope to be able to give you some of the pros and cons of globalization, but I certainly am not going to hide my bias that globalization is absolutely necessary for the future of mankind. I hope this is a topic that you find interesting, and if you do, I look forward to seeing you in the fall.
Hi, my name is Jim O'Leary, and I'll be teaching a course this fall called Telescopes, Our Portal to the Universe. And telescopes do just that. They give us the universe. If you think about science, scientists like to get things in their hands to study. Astronomy is the one science we can't do that. We have to wait for light to travel through the universe to come to us. And we gather that light through telescopes. They're like large eyes. They pick up more light than our eyes do. We can magnify these objects in the universe and study them. So all this started back in 1609 when a gentleman named Galileo Galilei first used a telescope. And I've got a model of one of his original telescopes. It looks like this, had a very small opening to gather light, and he would focus objects with this device in the back. And with this small telescope, he made revolutionary discoveries in 1609 and 1610 that changed our understanding of our place in the universe. Now, he didn't invent it. He just heard about it and put it to the use of actually looking into the sky, which strangely nobody had done before. One story is that the telescope idea was actually developed by kids playing with pieces of glass that eventually led to the invention of the telescope. But after Galileo and after the idea of the telescope became popular, more and larger telescopes are made and more discoveries are being made as well. And we'll be looking at some of the interesting characters that are involved in that history. They were coming from a number of fields. There were brewers and barons, musicians. There's one fellow who's a high school dropout that made some amazing discoveries about the universe. And today, telescopes and observatories are located in these amazing remote locations on extinct volcanoes, and the Andes Mountains in Hawaii, and the Canary Islands. And I visited some of those, a lot of stories and pictures to show of those. And that's pretty much our course. So I hope you can join us for our Telescope Portal to the Universe class this fall. Hi, I'm Jim O'Leary, and I'll be teaching this fall for Osher at Johns Hopkins. One of my courses is called Mysteries of the Milky Way. So the Milky Way is the galaxy that we live within. It contains hundreds of billions of stars, like our sun, some that are bigger, smaller, cooler, hotter. And it also contains lots of new planets that we're discovering. We've discovered thousands of other planets that are circling some of these stars. Some of them might be like the Earth, and those are things we still have to discover. At the center of our Milky Way, one of the more amazing things we found over the last couple of years is a gigantic black hole that is 3 to 4 million times the mass of our sun. Incredible, hard to imagine. And we can't see it. So we'll talk about how that was discovered and what it means for our galaxy. So our galaxy is just one of trillions that exist throughout the universe, trillions. And that's something we've only come to discover over the last couple of years. And actually, it's only been in the last 100 years that we've known that our galaxy is not the entire universe. There's an astronomer's name you might have heard. His name is Edwin Hubble, and he discovered that for us back in the 1920s. And since then, we've discovered more and more things about these distant galaxies. And we'll be talking about all the different varieties there are, and especially one, it's called the Andromeda Galaxy, one that we can see in the sky that's actually on a collision course with our Milky Way galaxy. That's going to happen far in the future, but the two of them will intertwine and eventually become one gigantic city of stars in the sky. So if you have the opportunity to look up in the sky and see the Milky Way that spans overhead, that's part of what we're talking about. But every star you see in the sky is part of our Milky Way. So I hope you can join me in this exploration of the mysteries of the Milky Way.
One which was very, very dynamic. We had a great need for offering places where artists could have this possibility to show their works. And actually, St. James was one of those incentives to fulfill this need. As you know, the history of spaces in Malta mostly started with the Museum of Archaeology in Valletta, especially in the 60s, when the artists started to meet and group together and exhibit there. Eventually, it will move to The National Museum of Fine Arts had just established a record of exhibitions almost on a weekly basis. And this, of course, developed a lot of enthusiasm, and it brought many other people who generally were not visiting museums or interested in art. And therefore, there was a need that we could not cope with spaces.
Hi, I'm Stan Levin. In the fall semester, I will be teaching a class entitled Aaron Sorkin, the writer for the big and little screens. In our current era, when commercial films are action-packed CGI spectacles based on comic books, Sorkin's screenplays in some ways throw back to the 40s with crisp dialogue, humor, and a world populated by smart characters. His screenplays explore the lives of people like Stephen Jobs, Charlie Wilson, and Mark Zuckerberg. He deals with many issues, putting together a baseball team by use of computers, government oppression of anti-war protests, social networks. His TV series include West Wing and The Newsroom, and they deal with centers of power, both in politics and journalism. His career is like a movie itself. He has a degree in musical theater. He wanted to be an actor. The closest he got to being on a Broadway stage was selling alcohol. He was a bartender at the Palace Theater in New York. One day he gets a call from his sister Barbara, a recent law school graduate who got a job with the Navy. She was going down to Guantanamo Bay to defend a group of Marines who were accused of trying to kill one of their own. She tells this to her brother, and it becomes the basis of A Few Good Men. By the way, he's still a very busy working writer and now a director. And in the future, I hope it's available by the end of the semester, is a film about making of I Love Lucy. During the semester, I will be showing clips from his films and TV productions in order to share my enthusiasm from Aaron Sorkin. Yes, I am a huge fan. We will also be exploring the art of the screenwriter through Sorkin's career. I look forward to seeing you all in the fall. Thank you.
Hello, my name is George Clack, and I'll start you with a trivia question. What magazine first published James Joyce's Ulysses? Well, the answer was it was The Little Review, a magazine launched in 1914 as an outlet for avant-garde writing and art. What I want to say is that today there are hundreds of small literary magazines in the United States, the successors to The Little Review. One of them happens to be the Little Patuxent Review, which is published right here in Columbia. In the course I like to call Inside the Little Patuxent Review, we'll be taking a look at 4 things over 6 weeks. First, in each class, we'll discuss some poetry, a short story, and an essay taken from the winter 2020 issue of the Little Patuxent Review. To make for good discussions, the class will be limited to 25 students. Second, we'll consider the vital role little magazines have played in discovering up-and-coming writers and in fostering the literary ecosystem in the United States. Third, we'll delve into some of the issues involved in publishing these days. Finally, for each class, we'll invite a member of the magazine's staff or board to sit in with us for a question and answer session. Full disclosure, I'm an LPR board member, so I read every issue with great expectations. In every issue, I run across a brilliant poem or a story or an essay by a writer I never heard of. I'm looking forward to hearing what you'll discover in the LPR come this fall.
Hello, mystery lovers. I'm Melinda Kramer, and I'm ready to lead you through next fall's Osher Mystery and Detective Fiction class. For 6 weeks, beginning on November 2nd, we will explore 5 novels set in 3 nations' capitals. And so I'm calling the course very cleverly, Capital Crimes, Detective Fiction from Washington, Paris, and Dublin. Those are our 3 capitals. We'll be reading some wonderful authors, some from the past, some you may already know, some from today's bestseller list, which, as you know, is kind of against my principles, but I think we've got some good ones from the bestseller list. We're going to start with Tanya French's Faithful Place, which is set in Dublin. And then we'll go to George Simenon and Louise Penny's Paris. We're going to read Maigret Sets a Trap and Louise Penny's newest one, All the Devils Are Here. I think you're going to really enjoy this pairing. Then we're going to finish with Margaret Truman's Murder on K Street, just to do a little local color. And the last one will be George Pelecanos's The Man Who Came from Uptown, which is recently on the bestseller list. So these last two are set in our own capital city, Washington, D.C. Tanya French says, murder is a unique crime. It is the unique crime. It is the only one that makes us ask why. Murder needs an answer. So together we'll find some answers beginning on November 2nd. See you then.
Greetings. Let's talk about the astonishing phenomena that is music between about 1900 to World War II. An incredible flowering of great musical minds happened in Europe and in this country as well. There is so much amazing music. And part of this is because concert going had become such a routine thing. Public orchestras had become such a routine thing. Music was no longer just a thing for courts. Music was no longer a private entertainment. Music was now literally available to anybody who could buy a ticket, and a lot of people could buy a ticket. So whether it's the incredible music of the 20s by Les Six in Paris, or the music that happened in Germany in the 1930s, which was eventually considered degenerate by the Nazis, whether it was the incredible final flowering of, or final flowering in the sense not that it ended, but finally things flowered in America, and we got this incredible wealth of music by not just Copland, Bernstein, and Gershwin, but also Samuel Barber, who's writing astonishing pieces at that time in this particular country, or the amazing second renaissance of English music. All of these produced an incredible part of the core classical art music repertoire. And we have so much we can do. 12 weeks will hardly suffice, but yet I think each and every week should be a fascinating exploration of amazing music. And I hope you will join me. I'm looking forward to the fall very much with you, and we will talk more about all this then. Stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk. And I'm looking forward to it very, very much. Be well.
Hi, my name is Dr. Bob Baer, and the course I'm going to be teaching on Thursday mornings is the Crusade to End Slavery in America. Now, this course is going to be about prior to the American Civil War. We're going to look at a number of the different personalities, a number of the different movements, the ideologies, and how people came together in the country to oppose the enslavement of people in the southern part of the United States. We're going to look at the history going back to the beginnings of the anti-slavery movement, when it was basically trying to call for a gradual, compensated slavery, where slaveholders would be, paid for their slaves. We're going to look at the British emancipation movement, which really created the model for the United States. But then we're going to look at what's called the abolitionist movement, starting in the 1830s, in which those called for the immediate end of slavery. So we have, it'll be a course in which many things that you may not have learned about the anti-slavery movement, the abolitionists, who are really the first great humanitarians in American history. So I hope you'll join me. You're going to learn a lot of things that wasn't in your textbooks, and really much of it really is very relevant to American history today and things that are still going on. So I hope you'll be able to join me. Good morning. My name is Dr. Bob Baer, and I'm going to be teaching the class on Thursday mornings called the Reconstruction Period, America's First Civil Rights Movement. Now, this is the Reconstruction period after the American Civil War from 1865 to 1877, is one of the most misunderstood of all periods in American history. But this is a period when I call the first civil rights movement, because they really tried to really change America to create a more equal America. The American government tried to, in the ashes of the ending of slavery. So we're going to be looking at the violence against Southern blacks, with the Ku Klux Klan and others. We'll look at what are called the radical Republicans in Congress, who passed laws that tried to create a more equal society in the South for the freed population. We're going to look at the Andrew Johnson and his impeachment. But just there's so many different aspects of this history that is important for people to know, especially as we look at race relations today, because this is in many ways really set up the type of race relations that we would have in this country. So I hope you'll be able to join us. I guarantee you're going to learn a lot of things about our history that you have not been taught before.
Hello, my name is Robert Jacobs, and I'm going to be teaching a course called Living in Dangerous Times, the novels of Don DeLillo. So Don DeLillo is considered by many today to be America's greatest living novelist. He's been writing since the early 1970s, and he really is a fascinating writer who has investigated sort of what it means to be an American in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. And we are going to be looking at primarily three novels. His 1985 novel, White Noise, which is about an American professor working in a small college town and his family. His 1988 award-winning novel, Libra, which is a fictionalized historical version of the Kennedy assassination, looking at sort of what ifs, what could have happened possibly with Lee Harvey Oswald and the Kennedy assassination. And then lastly, his 1991 novel, Mao 2, which looks at the sort of intersection of the developing terrorism that was happening in the early 1990s that we have become more familiar with, of course, in our day, and celebrity culture and media culture. So those are the three main novels we'll be looking at, and I invite you to come take part, and I think it will be an interesting class. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Vitaglione, and I will teach a course on French philosophy entitled Wisdom's Fortune, an introduction to French philosophical thought from the beginning, in the 16th century until the 20th century, until the 1970s. I will speak about Montaigne in the 16th century. In the 17th century, about Descartes specifically. I will speak about Voltaire, Rousseau, Montesquieu, and Diderot in the 18th century, and will focus specifically on Auguste Comte in the 19th century. And in the 20th century, I will focus on Bergson, Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir. I will speak a little bit about Gaston Bachelard, Albert Camus, of course, and Michel Foucault. That will be a general introduction to, in the light of modern research. It's not just a textbook or the kind of introduction that you might hear in, let's say, French lycées and the French schools or even American universities, where you will hear only the more classical ideas about them. I will go beyond that, and I will show you that everything you imagine about French philosophy, or everything you heard, was wrong.
My name is Diane Sharper. I teach the memoir class for Osher. This semester, we're going to be in the fall semester, we're going to be talking about the stories of our lives. These are pivotal moments in our lives that have kind of made us who we are. In the spring, right now, we're talking about pivotal moments, historical pivotal moments, like the assassination of Kennedy, or Martin Luther King, or Robert
Kennedy, or 9/11. In the fall, we're going to be talking about pivotal moments that are our own. What happened to us that's kind of made us who we are. And we're going to be looking at stories, published stories, true stories, and invented stories to kind of see how stories work and how you form a memoir from character, action, and setting. So, we've got a lot going on in the class. And if you take the class, your writing is going to get better and you're going to have fun. It's a lot of people it's about 10 people that take it over and over again. So they all enjoy it. And I hope you will too, and hope you come. And that's it. And thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Carl Hampman, and I'll be teaching a course this fall called Social and Political Movements of the 1960s. I want to get into depth on several of the social and political movements of the 1960s, which contributed to making it such a dynamic decade, for better or worse. And these are ones that either started during the 60s or really crystallized in the 60s. So we're going to cover the civil rights movement, or might call it the African American civil rights movement, the women's movement, the gay rights movement, the Latino rights movement, the Native American movement, and also the anti-Vietnam War movement, which is the one that's more political than social, although they all have components of both. What I want to do is take a look at these individually and look at the origins and roots of the movement, what tactics they used, lawsuits, strikes, demonstration, boycotts, etc. Who were the leaders? What were the organizations? How did they use the news media? How did the news media cover their activities? What backlash has resulted from that? What resistance? What internal conflicts were there? What goals did they achieve? What goals remain to be obtained? And finally, of the goals they thought they had achieved, and 50, 60 years later, do they need to be achieved or protected to this day? And I hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be a very interesting class. And I think as I learned working on it, putting it together, I think you'll learn some things too. Thank you. Hope to see you in the fall.
Hi, I'm Dorothea Israel Wolfson, and I'll be teaching a course this fall for Osher called Models of Democratic Leadership in America. Up until recently, the continuity and survival of America's democratic system of government was taken for granted by most commentators. After all, the United States Constitution is the longest lasting written constitution of all time. Yet in recent decades, American democracy has faced increased challenges and tensions, riddled by deep political polarization and divisions, with extreme politics taking root on both the left and the right. This political polarization has become further amplified and entrenched by new digital technologies. The algorithms and bots of the internet and the social media universe increasingly create misinformed citizens and silo them into hardened, polarized camps. So this course aims to explore the concept of democratic leadership, its innate challenges, tensions, limitations, and potential through different periods of American history. Our aim is to discover patterns and trends in the dynamics of democratic leadership through our study of some of the individuals who both founded America's political institutions, as well as those leaders who led America through times of great difficulty. Now, it is my hope that this class will provide you with the framework for better assessing more contemporary American leaders today and the overall state of American democracy. I really hope you'll join me this fall to discuss all these important questions. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's Ernest Liotti, and I'm here to talk about my class in the fall, Great Pianists of the Past. We will be looking at the careers of some of the most famous pianists that you may know, like Arthur Rubinstein, Vladimir Horowitz, and also maybe some pianists that you're not familiar with, like Joseph and Rosina Levine or Dino Lipatti. It had been suggested if there's any reading to do, there is none that's required, and you certainly don't have to play the piano. But there's a wonderful book by Harold Schoenberg called The Great Pianists that you might want to look into, and that's easily available on Amazon or on eBay. Also, we'll be discussing the history of recorded sound from wax cylinders all the way up to the modern CD, and looking into a marvelous innovation that came around the turn of the 20th century called the Velte Mignon, which was a very, very sophisticated piano roll system that many of the greats recorded on, including people like Richard Strauss doing the Dance of the Seven Veils. So I think it will be a very interesting and exciting class, and I look forward to you joining us and participating. Thank you.
Hello, I'm going to be teaching Designing Washington, Art for Democracy, Consensus and Controversy. I'm Judy Scott Feldman. It's a 6-week course. We're going to start in 1791 with the design of Washington, which was intended to be a work of art by L'Enfant, Charles L'Enfant, working with Thomas Jefferson, and in particular, President George Washington. Number 2, class 2 will be mid-19th century, looking at the mayhem and renewal, both the lack of attention to the city by Congress in the 19th century, but also the redevelopment and the development of L'Enfant's plan with places such as DuPont Circle, creating the beautiful places we know today. In 3, we'll be looking at the 1902 Macmillan Commission plan. Daniel Burnham had spoken about Make No Little plans, and his plan, not just for the mall, but also for public parks, for the rivers and so on, will be the focus of this class. 4, we'll be looking at the mid-20th century, Art for War, the role of the New Deal in Washington. Number 5, we'll be looking contemporary, 2000, the stage for American democracy, the way in which the mall has become truly a place for public protest, for celebration, and also how we have now started to retell our story with new memorials to African American history, American Indian history. And the last week of class, class number 6, we're going to be looking at hot topics in the news. So I look forward to seeing many of you and to discussing our beloved city. Bye.